Could you feed 2 people for a week? On $60, everything included. Not one meal, every single meal. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 7 days. I wasn't sure I could either. So I tried it and kept the receipt. $60.13. Nobody went hungry. Nobody ate sadly. We ate better than weeks I spent double. Let me show you every dollar. I didn't do this because we're in trouble. I did it to see if I still could, the way my mother always could. She fed 5 of us on almost nothing, and I'd somehow forgotten every bit of how she actually did it. So I gave myself $60, 1 trip to the store, and 1 rule. Every meal for 7 days comes out of this. No pantry cheating, no ordering out, no running back for milk. $60 and whatever was already in the house. I'll walk you through the whole thing. First the receipt, every line, so you see exactly what $60 buys. Then all 7 days of meals, what we actually ate, and roughly what each plate ended up costing. And at the end, the one thing that made all of it possible. It isn't a coupon, and it isn't a sacrifice. If your grocery bill has been frightening you lately, I think this will help. It genuinely surprised me. A quick, honest note. Prices are what I paid in my town this month. Yours will be a little different. But the ideas travel anywhere, and the ideas are the real point, not my exact receipt. Everything I bought fit into 2 paper bags, and everything we ate came out of them. So let's start where the week started. At the store, with $60 and a list. First, the produce. This is where a tight budget lives or dies, and where most of us overspend without ever knowing. I bought onions, carrots, a cabbage, a bag of potatoes, bananas, apples, and a bag of frozen mixed vegetables. All of that came to $14. $14, and it was the base of half the meals this week. I bought whole, and I bought sturdy. Things that keep, roots, cabbage, frozen, not delicate things that rot by Wednesday. My mother built every week around potatoes, onions, and carrots. She called them the Trinity. They go in nearly everything. Running total, $14. 46 still to go, and the cart already looks like real food. Next, the pantry basics. The cheapest, most filling food in the whole store, and the part I used to skip. A big bag of rice, a bag of dried oats, a box of pasta, and a small bag of flour. $10 for all of it, and it will outlast the week, with plenty to spare. This is where calories are cheap. Rice and oats cost pennies a serving and fill a plate that would otherwise need meat. My grandmother's cupboard was rice, oats, flour, and beans. From those 4 things, she could feed anyone who walked in. Running total, $24, more than half my budget still sitting in my pocket. Now the part everyone worries about, protein. And this is where the whole week is quietly won or lost. I bought 1 whole chicken, a dozen eggs, a bag of dried beans, and a single can of tuna. $16 altogether. 1 chicken, 12 eggs, a bag of beans, 1 can of fish. Not 1 package of expensive cuts. A whole chicken is the cheapest way to buy meat, and it stretches for days. Eggs are the best protein bargain in the store. Beans are almost free. That is the entire secret of the meat aisle. My mother made 1 chicken last 3 dinners and a pot of soup. She'd have been horrified by what I used to buy. This is the one that scares people most, and it should be the one that reassures them. You do not need much. Running total, $40. 20 left, and the protein for the whole week is already in the bag. Then dairy. Small, but it does a great deal of quiet work across a week of meals. A gallon of milk, a block of cheese, and a stick of butter, that's all. $8. Milk for the oats, cheese to make a plain plate feel like a meal, butter for the bread. I bought the block of cheese, not the shredded. It's cheaper by far, and it keeps far longer in the drawer. My mother kept butter, milk, and a little cheese, and made them stretch across the whole week without a thought. Running total, $48. 12 left, and only the bread and the odds and ends to go. Almost done. The bread, and a few small things to tie the meals together. A day-old loaf from the bakery rack, marked down to $1, and I'd bake a second loaf at home. The bread came to about $4 for the week, and half of it went straight into the freezer. Then the odds and ends, a can of tomatoes, a small bottle of oil, and a few spices I was low on. $8 for the extras, tomatoes for sauce, oil for the pan, seasoning to make it all taste like something. That's the part people forget. A little oil, salt, an onion, and some spice turned cheap ingredients into a real meal. My grandmother could make plain beans taste wonderful with an onion, a bay leaf, and thyme. Seasoning is the cheapest luxury there is. Final total, $60.13. 2 paper bags, 7 days of food for 2 people. I stood at the register almost not believing it. It looked like more food than my $100 trips ever did. Now the part I was actually nervous about. Turning 2 bags of plain ingredients into a whole week of meals. Monday. We started with the roast chicken because a roast chicken is a gift that keeps giving all week. Breakfast was oatmeal with a sliced banana. Lunch was eggs on toast. Simple, warm, and it costs almost nothing. For dinner I roasted the whole chicken with potatoes, carrots, and onions in one pan. The house smelled like Sunday. That whole roast dinner came to about $1.50 a plate. Chicken, potatoes, carrots, all of it. We ate the legs and some breast, and I put the rest away. Half a chicken still left for the days ahead. My mother never served a whole chicken in one night. Half of it was tomorrow's lunch and the next night's soup. It felt like a feast, honestly, not like budgeting at all. Just a good dinner on an ordinary Monday. One day down, and I'd barely touched the protein. That's when I started to believe $60 might actually work. Tuesday. The chicken carcass became the best pot of soup we'd had in ages, and it cost me almost nothing to make. Oats again for breakfast. Lunch was leftover chicken on bread, which is one of life's quiet pleasures. For dinner I simmered the bones with an onion, some carrots, and a handful of rice into a big pot of soup. A bowl of that soup cost me about 60 cents, and there was enough for dinner and 2 lunches after. This is the trick that used to be ordinary and now feels like magic. You already paid for the chicken. The soup is free. My grandmother would no more throw out a chicken carcass than throw out a $5 bill. The bones were the whole point. We ate soup and warm bread and felt completely taken care of. Nobody at that table felt like they were going without. 2 days in, and I'd fed us 3 meals a day from barely a quarter of the bags. Wednesday, beans and rice, the cheapest dinner in the world, and, made right, one of the most comforting. I'd put the dried beans in to soak the night before. That one small step is the whole difference. Breakfast was oatmeal, lunch the last of the chicken soup. Dinner was beans simmered with onion, tomato, and spice over rice. That entire pot of beans and rice cost about 40 cents a serving, filling, warm, and genuinely delicious. Dried beans cost a fraction of the canned ones, and a single bag makes pot after pot. It's almost free protein. My mother served beans and rice without a hint of apology, because, seasoned well, it's a meal anyone is glad to eat. We had it with a little cheese melted on top, and there wasn't a scrap left. Wednesday is beans night now, for good. Halfway through the week, and I still had eggs, pasta, half a cabbage, and plenty of rice. Thursday, pasta with a simple tomato sauce, the dinner even a tired person can put together in 15 minutes. Oatmeal, then leftover beans for lunch, wrapped in nothing fancier than a warm slice of bread. For dinner, pasta with a sauce of that can of tomatoes, an onion, some oil, and whatever spice smelled right. A big plate of pasta came to about 50 cents. A little grated cheese on top made it feel like a restaurant. A box of pasta and a can of tomatoes is one of the great bargains in any store. It feeds a family for $1 or $2. My mother's tomato sauce was onions, a can of tomatoes, and patience. No jar, no fuss, and better than anything in one. We twirled our forks and nobody once thought about the price. That's the whole goal. Cheap should never taste cheap. 4 days down, 4 to go, and the budget was holding with room to spare. Friday, breakfast for dinner, which in this house is a small celebration and costs next to nothing. The usual oats in the morning, and for lunch, pasta from the night before, just as good cold. For dinner I made a big frittata, eggs, the last of the potatoes, an onion, and a little cheese, all in one pan. That whole egg supper cost about 70 cents a serving, and it used up the odds and ends beautifully. Eggs are the frugal cook's best friend. A dozen eggs turns leftovers and a few vegetables into a proper dinner. My mother called it a clean-out-the-fridge supper. Whatever needed using went into the eggs, and it was always good. We had it with toast and felt spoiled. Friday night, breakfast for dinner, for the price of almost nothing. 5 days fed, and I finally stopped worrying about running short. There was plenty. Saturday, the humble cabbage finally had its day, and it turned out to be one of the best meals of the week. Oats, then a frittata sandwich for lunch from Friday's leftovers. Nothing wasted, everything used. For dinner, a big skillet of fried cabbage and potatoes with onion and little tuna patties on the side. The whole skillet supper came to about 65 cents a plate. Humble, hearty, and surprisingly wonderful. Cabbage is one of the cheapest, most underrated vegetables in the store. It fills a pan and keeps for weeks. My grandmother fried cabbage and potatoes in a little butter, and it was one of my favorite things she made. I understand why now. We ate every bite. That was the meal that made me realize cheap food and good food were never really enemies. 6 days done, and I had eggs, oats, rice, and half the vegetables still to go. I could have gone another week. Sunday. The week ended the way my grandmother's weeks always did, with a big pot of soup made from everything left. Oatmeal, a last bowl of beans for lunch, and then I emptied the crisper into a pot for supper. Every leftover vegetable, the last of the rice, a little seasoning, and it became a soup that tasted like the whole week. That end-of-week soup was practically free, maybe 30 cents a bowl, and there was enough to send us into Monday. This is the meal that has no recipe. It's just the honest end of a week where nothing at all was thrown away. My grandmother made this exact soup every single Sunday, and no two were ever the same. That was the beauty of it. We ended the week warm, full, and a little proud, with bread on the table and soup in the pot. 7 days, 21 meals for 2 people, all of it out of 2 paper bags and $60. And here's the part I did not expect. There was food left over, rice, oats, eggs, half a cabbage, flour. I could have started a second week with what remained. The $60 had far more room in it than I ever believed. Nobody in this house felt deprived, not once. We ate warm, real, home-cooked food every single night. Which brings me to the one thing that made all of it possible. The thing my mother and grandmother knew without thinking. Number 1 is not a food or a coupon or a clever trick. It's a plan. A single, simple plan made before I ever left the house. The whole week worked because I decided what we'd eat before I decided what to buy. The meals came first, the list came second. I bought 1 chicken because I already knew it would become a roast, then lunches, then a pot of soup. Nothing was random. Every single thing in those 2 bags had a job. That's why $60 stretched, and why almost nothing was wasted. Without a plan, $60 buys you half a week of random things and a lot of guilt. With one, it buys a whole week of good meals. That's what my mother and grandmother had that I had lost. Not secret recipes. A plan and the will to use everything. They cooked from what they had, they wasted nothing, and they decided the week on purpose instead of letting the store decide it. When I got that back, the $60 was almost easy. The plan did the work. I just followed it. And I ate better than I had in months. More vegetables, more real cooking, more meals at a table that felt like home. That's the thing nobody sells you, because nobody can. A plan is free. It's the cheapest, most powerful thing in your whole kitchen. $60 didn't feed us. The plan fed us. The $60 just came along for the ride. So no, this was never really about the number. 60 was just proof of what a plan and a full pantry can do. It's the same lesson my grandmother lived every week of her life, and the one I'm so grateful I finally remembered. My grocery week cost $60, and it fed us better than the weeks that cost twice as much. That's what the plan really bought me, not just cheap food, the quiet certainty that we'll always eat well, whatever prices do. So here's my question for you. If you had 1 week and $60, what's the first meal you would plan? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to see what your grandmother's kitchen taught you.